What's up, everyone? Michael here with the gaming news of the week. So basically, just like every week, we end up checking up a bunch of gaming news and stuff, and I'm talking about them. And if you want the articles, we have a gaming Discord called the Broken Chat Box, link in the description, and we have a news and such section. All these articles were posted in there, and of course, if you're on YouTube, you can end up checking the links down in the description. We will have a timestamp along with the link to the article and the description of what it is. So if you want to end up checking those out, I encourage that you check out the ones that you're interested in, etc., etc. Now, what we end up doing is we end up checking out the immediate stuff like game sales or free games and things like that, and then we check out some more important stuff that I really want to talk about, and then we kind of taper off from there. So let's go ahead and begin. So we got one free game this week that I know about. There might be more, but I just don't know about them. Obduction is free on GOG right now until June 1st, 1 p.m. UTC. That is in UTC, so I don't actually know how that converts. Basically, Obduction is a game that was released by Cyan, aka the developers of Myst, and it released back in 2016. I've never played this one, so I can't actually recommend it or not recommend it. So basically, if you want it free, go add it to your library. It'll just be there forever, and you can check it out whenever you want to, or just don't if you don't care. So basically, there you go. It looks pretty from the screenshots, but I know absolutely nothing about it, so I can't really tell you much about it. So apologies for that. And that's all I've got for free games this week, unfortunately. Normally we have a few more, but apparently it's a slow week on the gaming news. So we might be a little bit short on the timestamp here. However, here is our one big gaming story news this week that I really want to talk about, because I talked about this years ago, and it's incredibly annoying that it's actually gone through. So let's go ahead and talk about this one, because I don't even know how to explain this quite properly, that it's actually like in layman's terms. So this might be a little bit confusing, and I apologize in advance for that. But basically, gaming disorder officially recognized as a disease by the World Health Organization, or the WHO organization. Sigh, less sigh. Now, this has already been criticized by hundreds and hundreds, or 1,001 doctors, I could just say. Basically, everyone inside the big industry that actually studies addiction is pretty much pissed off at the WHO organization for this, or WHO organization, the World Health Organization for this, because essentially gaming addiction isn't technically real. It's a behavioral addiction. I'll talk about that in a second. But basically what they're saying here is that gaming disorder ends up having characteristics that are addictive. So it's like, oh, well, sometimes it impairs their ability to do things like go to their work or do whatever they need to, or care to their functional needs, such as, eating or sleeping, etc., etc. And it can impair control without them being able to control against negative consequences. In other words, if basically they are gaming a lot, but they're having negative consequences for it, they don't stop. And that's how they're trying to justify this. Now, obviously, every single doctor in the industry has been like, hey, you guys don't actually have any sufficient evidence or anything that actually solidifies this. And it's actually brought up a lot of questions about who was running the WHO organization, or World Health Organization, and what this is actually targeted at. Because a lot of doctors have actually said that this might just be a way to kind of either target video games, or just the people running it not understanding what video games are, or understanding addictions that they're actually classifying themselves. Because basically, I'll get into it now. The kind of complications to this is that actually making it so that gaming disorder is described as a disease is describing it as a disease like measles or smallpox or the common cold, or more specifically, drug addiction. Now, the reason why those things are classified as they are is because they make physical changes to the way that you behave and the way that your body works and the way that it requires different types of chemicals, and they call it a chemical addiction. And the reason this is happening is because, let's say for drugs instantly, like a lot of them end up changing the chemical makeup of your body, and they make it so that certain chemicals are accompanied for and require more of them. So for example, let's say dopamine, for example. This is a great example with a lot of different types of drugs. Most commonly with the addiction types is to where basically it would make it so that it requires more dopamine to get the satisfaction that normally a smaller amount of dopamine would require. So let's say you get 3 pints of dopamine from normal activities or whatever, and that would be normally your height of enjoyment. That is your happiest moment that you could ever be in existence. If you end up start using drugs, then what will happen is it will change the chemical makeup so that you will require 5 or 6 or 8 dopamine. And then everything else sort of falls flat, and then your body all of a sudden starts requiring these sorts of things. And it'll be like, oh, hey, you're not getting the amount of dopamine you need, and it can cause things like depression or major anxieties and et cetera, et cetera. And tweakers, that's why that happens. It makes chemical changes to your body and actually changes how you physically work. Now, I probably don't need to state this, but video games don't do that. Neither does watching TV. neither does jogging, neither does drinking water, neither does a lot of other things that are all classified as behavioral addictions, but apparently video games are being singled out. Now, I'm not going to deny the fact that video games can be addictive. They're an entertainment medium and they are designed specific ways, and there are different types of addictions that are currently being exploited within the AAA gaming industry, such as gambling addiction. However, gambling addiction itself is also a behavioral addiction and is classified as a behavioral addiction. So the fact that video games aren't getting that same treatment when 99% of their classifications here are exactly the same as gambling addiction is absolutely mind-boggling. And the reason why this is a big deal is because, for one, video games actually have a lot of positive benefits, and whose actual proposition to fix gaming disorder is the idea of making it so they just no longer play video games, just to remove video games from their life, which can be extremely dangerous. Now, the major dangers from here that doctors have actually stated is misclassifying diseases and making it so that behavioral addictions are considered actual diseases, is it could end up causing misdiagnosis, and that could be extremely dangerous. Now, the reason why behavioral addictions exist, you can do more research if you want to question anything that I'm saying here, because I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to get too much in depth, but essentially, it is filling a hole inside somebody's mind that is something missing. So, for example, with depression, a lot of people that have depression have something to fill that void. They end up filling something that gives them a little bit of joy or a little bit of presence that can end up filling up this hole in their mind. Now, the proper diagnosis for that would be like, okay, hey, this person is playing a lot of video games. Let's go ahead and see what's wrong with them. And it could be a mental issue. And so they end up looking at the mental issues like, okay, this person's depressed. How do we fix this? What's causing the depression? And how do we diagnose this properly? And then you can end up figuring that out. Maybe they have a mental disease that ends up being like some sort of strain of autism to where they don't know how to socially interact with people, and therefore their only social interactions are online. This is something that has literally happened before, and they can classify that properly. If gaming disorder is considered a disease, they are going to remove those classifications and basically make it so that, like, oh, well, here's the treatments for gaming disorder, and those aren't going to work. And the most dangerous part about this is if you remove the part that is filling that hole, they're going to find something else to fill that hole, and that could be much, much more dangerous than video games, which have very, very little negative consequence on their own. Playing a lot of video games, you might get some hand cramps here and there from like controller or keyboard, but outside of that, maybe some eye strain. It ain't really going to kill you. Problem is, people that have stopped playing video games because they were addicted to video games end up picking up things like drugs, like heavy drugs, heroin. Then they get chemical addictions, and it literally kills people. Also, people end up killing themselves when they end up getting video games removed from them by their parents because they're massively depressed. This is something I went through as a child, and I had friends who were lost because of this type of bullshit. So I'm not very happy about this, obviously, and I think it's a major, major danger, and a lot of doctors are definitely agreeing with that, and basically everyone within the industry is like, what the hell are you guys doing? So it's a major, major concern. So basically, nothing us gamers can really do about it for the most part, but be concerned. If somebody is overly gaming, if somebody is just straight up just playing nothing but video games, figure out what's mentally wrong with them, figure out what's going on, make sure they're actually, taking care of themselves and stuff. And do keep in mind that video games can be addictive, and make sure that your behavioral addiction isn't covering something else up. And that's really the only message I can have here for the normal people. But again, them classifying gaming disorder as a disease is very, very dangerous because it has that possibility of ignoring the actual causes of these issues. And this has been also the part of things like drug addiction and things like that, and it's been in discussion for this type of stuff for a long time, and it's brought up a lot of questions about the WHO in general, the World Health Organization. So yeah, it's kind of dangerous, but a lot of the stuff is, and if you're in the US at least, you know that mental care is just absolute non-existent basically over here in the US. So basically, this probably won't surprise literally anybody in the US, but I thought I may as well talk about it. Sorry for talking on a little bit too long about it. I could have done an entire video about it and gone into the complexities of it, but that's where I'm going to leave it because I did a video on it literally 2 years ago. I don't know if it was a specific video for it or if it was part of another. I think it was like a specific video. I either did it in a specific video or I talked about it in a podcast. I don't know. You can look up WHO on my YouTube channel, find it, I think. I don't know. I'll have to try and find my link for it, and then I'll post it with the articles in the description. Anyways, let's go on to everything else, which is kind of tapering off already, quite frankly. There's not really much to talk about too much from this week, so it's probably going to be a shorter video. But Apex Legends revenue tumbles by 74% in 2 months. This is also following the, I think it was like 40 or 50% tumble from the last month before that. Basically, Apex Legends is losing all of its players, and it's also losing all of its revenue. Now, Apex Legends, fun as hell game. I think a lot of a lot of the problems with the game comes down to its monetization. I don't like the fact that it has loot boxes. I think that the loot boxes are essentially just gambling. Of course, I've already mentioned that in several different videos, and so I don't really necessarily like that, and I think that their battle pass is underwhelming, and it's giving no kind of incentive for people to keep playing, etc., etc. And I think that's its major issues with keeping players. Another issue is one thing that I actually brought up when I was talking about Fortnite in a specific video. I'll link that as well, where I was talking about Fortnite and how they were actually overworking their production teams to actually make sure that Fortnite could actually release updates in the amount of services that people were expecting from a games as a service model. Basically, for Fortnite is working because they're releasing updates on a bi-weekly basis, and it is constantly being updated, constantly changing. There's always something new for somebody to come back to. And their battle pass is actually quite good. It has a lot of stuff in it. It encourages people to keep playing, and it actually offers a reward for you essentially just playing the freaking game, which I don't like the battle pass system. I've mentioned that in other videos, but again, it works, and it keeps people playing. And the reason why is because they're able to keep up updates. I mentioned in that video, I talked about Apex Legends for a very small period of time, and I said Apex Legends is losing all its players because that news came out around the same time. And it was losing all its players because it can't keep the game updated. You can't just release constant updates without a massive working team, and this is the exact same problem that Epic is running into, to where they essentially don't have all the people that they need to make the amount of updates that they need, so they're actually having to overwork what they have, and they're running into a lot of issues with that. And if they could just hire people to fix this problem, they would. Apex Legends is on the opposite end of that, to where basically they're not going to overwork the amount of people that they have. They're not going to be doing overtime, and they said they don't do crunch. So they're not going to follow that update schedule. So they have the bi-monthly, I think it's either monthly or bi-monthly update schedule, which I think is great. I think that's awesome. I'm 100% okay with that. I stopped playing Apex Legends because I got bored of it, but I still like that idea of updating it, and it might make me come back in a month or two. So I enjoy that style of updates. But again, games as a service, I said it in that video when I was talking about Fortnite. If you don't keep the game updated, somebody else is going to take your spotlight and you're going to fall. And that's what Apex Legends is running into. And this is scary because basically they said they were running out and like actually removing plans from Titanfall to work on Apex, and I'm worried that might run into some issues when it comes down to actually making Titanfall, because a new Titanfall game would be great, because Titanfall 2 was supposedly good. I still haven't played it. I should, but supposedly it was really good. And so some people were actually really concerned that this will end up affecting that, which is very unfortunate. But in other news, they did announce that they're working on a mobile version, and that could end up being cool, and they could end up bringing in new players through that. But again, it's mostly down to they just don't have the workforce to not overwork everyone and not do crunch. So they're not going to do it. And I think that's honorable, but I also don't know if that's a way to make your live service game survive. And I think that the monetization model is a huge part of that, as in people want to keep spending money on it, but they're not going to be able to. And this is a big thing with the revenue as well. Like, the Battle Pass just isn't worth spending money on, and you're not releasing updates enough to have people be like, oh, well, I'm playing this a lot, so I'll go ahead and buy it. They're just not playing it. They're losing players as well. They're just bleeding players and bleeding money. And yeah, that's just the end of it. And if they could just hire more people to solve this problem, I guarantee, again, just like with Epic Games, they would. But they're taking a different approach at it, and it's showing what the industry actually cares about, which is, or not really the industry. The industry cares about not crunching their workers and actually making a profit. But Epic Games is doing the opposite. They are crunching their workers, they're getting out updates, and this resonates with players because players just, quite frankly, they don't care about developers at all, in any sense of the word. So they just like, oh, hey, cool. I don't care that some guy's working 200-hour work weeks. I get my new skin next week. Like, that's what they think, and that's how it works, and that makes money. But Apex Legends just doesn't update like that, so it doesn't really work. So that's a little bit unfortunate. I think that's unfortunate news, and it's kind of like an I told you so moment for me, because I've been saying this since Apex released, and they said they were going to do bi-monthly updates. I was like, yeah, that ain't going to work in this current marketplace, which I wish it would. Again, I wish it would, but it won't, unfortunately, because the competition is doing the opposite of that, and they're doing weekly or bi-weekly updates, and they got a lot of content constantly flowing in to constantly change everything. There's also the major difference that Apex Legends isn't an in-development game technically. It is technically a finished product, but regardless, I won't talk about it more. That I've already covered it over and over again. Again, I'll link that Fortnite video in the description because it's a pretty long video, but I actually go pretty in-depth onto the games as a service and how that doesn't work as an industry standard. So again, it's an interesting video. Let's talk about some good news. Talking about Microsoft again. God, I have a lot of positive things to say about Microsoft recently. So Xbox Game Pass is coming to PC. However, it's going to be slightly different than... Oops, my mic fell. Sorry about that. It's going to be slightly different than the console version. So basically, they're actually not necessarily saying what it's going to be, but they were announcing that they're going to be announcing it at the upcoming E3 conferences. So basically, look forward to that. So they're going to be talking about the PC and how it's going to be getting a new Game Pass. It's going to function slightly different, but their proposition is you're going to be able to play more than 100 games from publishers and stuff like that. And just basically, it's a subscription fee, and you pay the subscription fee, and then you can download them and then play them on your system. Supposedly, it's not a streaming service, but it is technically a subscription/streaming service. They think they do some streaming. I don't know how it works. But essentially, you can download the games if you have the subscription and then just play them whenever you want, which is pretty dang nice. Another additional thing from Microsoft that's quite positive is Microsoft is bringing more of its games to Steam, and they said, basically, we believe you should have the choice of where you buy your PC games. So basically, they're saying Windows Store sucks, so everyone's buying things on Steam. Our games are selling on the Windows Store and are kind of pushed to make the Windows Store the default platform to actually buy your games. Didn't work. So now we're going to release it on everything else because that works. Because they tried it and it functions perfectly fine. Now this is good for everyone because basically you can buy the games on whatever platform you want. Now personally, I don't have a problem with the Windows 10 Store very often. I think I actually have less problems with it than Steam because everyone knows by now that I absolutely hate Steam for a lot of reasons. But again, being able to buy the games wherever you want is a good thing. And certain games I do own on Steam and not there because they had them on sale on Steam and not on the Windows Store. So you might be able to get your games cheaper and stuff. And it also makes it so the competition is a little bit more interesting when it comes down to sales and stuff. And it also makes it so that you can just use whatever social platform you want as well, which is one of the major kind of criticisms towards the Epic Game Store. Is the Epic Game Store is kind of questionable in a lot of ways, and they've been screwing up sales, and they also don't have the community aspects that other storefronts do, such as Steam. So again, being able to actually release them on multiple platforms, that's great, and I think it's awesome that Microsoft is doing this, and it also reinforces the idea that Microsoft just wants to become a multi-platform company. They don't want to just focus on their one own thing, they want to be available everywhere. And again, this is also playing into gaming, and they're finally starting to step into this. Again, Xbox Live can be used on any platform. So there's nothing stopping them from just releasing their games on other platforms as well. We could end up seeing that in the future. So that would be awesome. I mean, imagine playing Halo on a Switch. I mean, come on, that'd be awesome. More interesting news. This is kind of weird. Nvidia is adding real-time ray tracing to Quake 2, and you can play it soon. So basically, I think it releases... Oh, no, it releases on June 6th, this says. I don't know. This is just a PC Gamer article. It's really short. But basically, they're adding ray tracing to Quake 2 to actually just show how it's done. And so basically, they're going to be making the actual assets for it open source, so you can end up checking it out and be like, oh, here's how to implement it. And basically, it's a developer resource, but players are going to be able to experience it as well. It makes the original Quake 2 look actually really, really good. They have a little announcement trailer and stuff. I'll link that in the description as well. And it's actually really pretty looking, and it's kind of hard to tell that it's like the original Quake 2, just modded with a little bit of a remaster. Now, obviously, they did texturing and stuff like that. They're calling it a remaster of Quake 2. And so they showed it off at GDC, and I remember watching the video and be like, whoa, like, what? And so it still looks like Quake 2, but it looks like a very, very pretty Quake 2. And I think that's really cool. They're actually adding out more resources, which means, hey, developers, here's how you do retracing, real time. Do it in your games now. Here's the source code. This is how we did it. Do it now. And so basically, I think that's really cool because now we're going to end up getting more games with ray tracing, supposedly, because again, resources are available. And Nvidia has been really good about that as well. They've actually done this with physics back when they were doing physics as well, and they actually acquired it and actually started implementing it. They actually, released a lot of stuff for it. I mean, like, hey, developers, this is how you do it, and here's all these different samples and stuff. And Unreal Engine 4 has been doing the same exact thing as well. So both of those kind of combining together, like ray tracing is already available in Unity, Unreal Engine 4, CryEngine. So we're going to start seeing ray tracing a lot more, which I think is super, super cool. And it's always cool to see a little remaster of an old game. Super Mario Maker 2's lack of costumes and online matchmaking with friends upsets fans. So they removed one feature, which was the costumes, which I don't really care. I never played Mario Maker. A lot of people really like Super Mario Maker, and it was like this thing where you could make your own levels, and people made really challenging ones. Some made them auto levels, and it was just a really cool creative experience, and you were able to share those levels online. Now, one of the big features about Super Mario Maker 2 is the idea of multiplayer, and they announced that you could play online with other players through a matchmaking system. However, they don't have parties for friends. So if you have friends online, you can't play with friends online. You have to play with them locally. So Nintendo has actually stated the reason for this, and they said they don't want people to exploit the leaderboards. Now, I know the real reason. They're freaking lazy because they have other games that have leaderboards and they have multiplayer, such as Splatoon. What? Mario Kart. What? So this is just a BS explanation for it. Most likely they were just lazy. They are going to be doing constant updates to the game. It is supposed to be one of those games that's getting little tiny money updates as things go on. Apparently the first Mario Maker as well did also have this. So again, they could probably add it in the future, but not releasing with it just seems ridiculous. The idea that this is a company that kind of bases their entire thing about family friendly and playing with friends, but Nintendo's always been really terrible about being able to play with friends. I mean, the DS had the notorious number system thing to where you actually had like a little code and you had to do the codes, and every single type of game that you went into you had a specific code. Some of this was due to memory limitations on the system and you actually had to have a thing inside the cart to do this, but again, it was just ridiculous, and they've always been against friends playing online for whatever reason, because I think they're afraid of predators and things. I don't know, it's weird. They're the only company that does this, and it's ridiculous, and their explanation for this is just even more ridiculous. But again, it could be added in the future. I don't personally care. I'm not going to play it, most likely. If I play it, I'm going to be at somebody's house playing it on their Switch, and so you can still play local multiplayer, and it disables leaderboards, which again brings up the question of why don't they have that online but just disable the leaderboards if you're playing with friends? It's just a ridiculous thing. Like, it seems so easy to fix, and obviously there's some technical thing that they just didn't solve, and they're just being lazy about it, quite frankly. Google kills off its Twitch killer. The YouTube gaming app shuts down this week. Or in a few days, specifically. Actually, I think it shut down by the time this video releases, actually. Whoops. Anyway, so basically the YouTube gaming app has shut down by now. Not as me recording this, but as the time this video releases. So basically what YouTube gaming was the idea of kind of killing Twitch. It was going to be like, hey, we're streaming video games on our YouTube platform. It was basically just a streamer platform. You could also have videos and things like that as well, obviously, and it had things categorized. Now, there were some major issues with YouTube gaming, and I did not particularly like it. For one, your subscriptions list was separate on YouTube gaming than it was on actual YouTube, and what they actually found was that people were just using YouTube instead of YouTube gaming. So the content on YouTube gaming was still available on the specific YouTube as well. Like, you could just go to normal YouTube and just find the YouTube gaming content, or you could go to YouTube gaming that just had the gaming content. The reality is people watch more than just gaming, and not everyone was releasing all their stuff on YouTube gaming because YouTube gaming required that you actually had a game tag that you put it under, and not all games had a tag. And so it was just a giant mess. YouTube gaming has always been a mess ever since it launched, and they're just shutting it down because nobody was using it because it sucked. That's the end of it. So anyways, they were trying to compete with Twitch on this. So it was originally what they ended up stating. And I remember that they're like, hey, now you can stream on here and not just Twitch. And this is also when they ended up enacting all the links to Twitch being banned and things, which was ridiculous to begin with. So people found ways around it, of course. I linked to my website and then links to Twitch. Anyways, yeah, so they did a bunch of stuff that was kind of weird. They tried to kill off Twitch, but failed because it's YouTube. YouTube fails at literally everything. So there you go. Last semi-major story, Iron Maiden, the band, has filed a trademark lawsuit against Ion Maiden, the game. This is a little bit weird. For one, Ion Maiden has been a name and trademark for years now. It was a game originally proposed in... Frick, I can't remember the exact date. It was like in the 90s or whatever. They actually had like a whole blog post and they were talking about how Ion Maiden was like in development forever and everything. And so it's been around for a really, really long time. So the fact that the Iron Maiden lawyers, I'm not going to say Iron Maiden specifically because I don't think the band members are like, oh my God, this game is called Iron Maiden. We don't like this. Ah! No, they're most likely like just looking at it as the lawyers. The lawyers are like, well, I sipped my third cup of coffee today and I still don't have a lawsuit. Let's go to Google. And they just mistype Iron Maiden and just like, oh, Iron Maiden, what is this nonsense? Anyway, so their trademark dispute basically, or not trademark dispute, their trademark lawsuit essentially states that, oh, the name Ion Maiden is too similar to Iron Maiden, which I'm not going to argue that that's pretty close, but they are different genres and they are different mediums, which already kind of separates them. However, Iron Maiden apparently has a smartphone game that released in 2016. I didn't know this, but apparently they do, and so they said, oh, Iron Maiden, the smartphone game called Legacy of the Beast, was released in 2016, and Ion Maiden is similar in name. The problem with this lawsuit is the fact that Ion Maiden has been trademarked since the 90s as a video game, so this might actually backfire on them, but again, Iron Maiden has money, I assume? I don't know, maybe not. Maybe they don't have money, and this is why the lawyers are like, oh no, we gotta sue a video game company, so they're suing 3D Realms, and 3D Realms is just like, well, that's the thing that's happening. So either they'll change the name or they'll keep the name and the lawsuit won't go anywhere. Most likely the lawsuit won't go anywhere. I don't think it has any foundation on it just because of the amount of time it's taken for them to actually go against it. And that does have sort of relevance inside the court. We've seen this with other cases such as the Scrolls instance. But again, It's just kind of weird, and I think it's kind of weird that they're randomly attacking this game out of nowhere, which is already going to be a super niche game because it's like a retro FPS game that basically nobody knows about. So there you go. That's how that's going to go. And now for some smaller pieces of news. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is going to get a $10 day one DLC. Now that probably is going to sound bad, but this is actually the pre-order bonus for the Kickstarter thing. So if you funded the Kickstarter, I think it was like $20 or more, you ended up getting the special DLC or whatever that was supposed to be exclusive. And basically they asked the community, like, are you guys okay with this? And the community's like, no, we want everyone to be able to experience it. But their trade-off was that it's going to cost money. So developers super cool about this. They're like, yeah, yes, it technically partially about money. We do want to make money from this, so we're not going to exclude that from us, but we also want everyone to be able to experience the full game. So here's $10. This is basically the compromise that everyone made. They're like, hey, we're not just going to include it for free. We're going to have a $10 price tag, which means that everyone who backed it is getting basically $10 free or whatever. They're getting $10 back on their investment. And that's been their kind of trade-off there. I'm super excited for Ritual of the Night. I'm probably not going to pick up the day one $10 DLC. I'll pick it up if I want it, if I actually love the game that much and I actually find it worth getting. Basically, it's a fight against Koji Igarashi. I am awful with names, so hopefully that's right. And you also get a whip sword thing, which looks pretty dang cool. So I might pick it up after lunch, after I play the game, but it's not like critical content. It's not like story-based content or anything like that. It's just like a bonus fight. And it was supposed to be like a special thing for Kickstarter, basically. People that backed it up. And they're like, yeah, here's this thing. It's special. There you go. You guys get it. But they're like, hey, we want everyone to be able to experience the full game. So there you go. So they wanted to make some more money. They're making some more money while also pleasing everyone. Not that bad of a deal, to be honest. Sky Pirates MMO Worlds Adrift shuts down in July. Never played this game. Know nothing about it. Never even heard of it. It's closing down. That's all I know. Sorry, that's literally the shortest topic in this list. Twitch's artifact category has become a wasteland. Well, it was a wasteland. Twitch has finally fixed it. But essentially, Twitch actually had an issue to where the artifact thing, there was a small meme that I guess somebody made about streaming something inappropriate on the artifact category on Twitch. And then it kind of blew up. And so there was hundreds and hundreds of streams that were just streaming really, really terrible stuff on there, just constantly. And Twitch was struggling to keep it moderated. Now, I think it's been fixed by this point. But the major takeaway here is that they actually disabled the ability for new accounts to stream for like a month. So that's not good. I don't know if they've reenacted that or not, but new people that make a new account on Twitch can't stream immediately to make sure that new bots aren't be created and stuff like this. But this is like Twitch's, or one of Twitch's first big giant like raids from like random terrible people. They're just like, we're going to make the artifact category terrible and put all this terrible stuff on Twitch. And they got away with it for quite a long time. There were people streaming very, very terrible stuff for several hours at a time. And that's not good. It was stuff like pornography, memes, shootings, terrible, terrible stuff. So this is like, wow. And Twitch just kind of let it go for too long, and people caught on to it. And they're like, Twitch, you should fix this. And yeah, so it was just a big PR nightmare for them. That's essentially how that went. Kind of weird. Square Enix announces a PS4 and Nintendo Switch remake of the PSP remake of the original Star Ocean. Yes, a remake of a remake. So Star Ocean, the first game, actually pretty cool. I actually liked it quite a bit back in the day. And PSP, I didn't even know they had a remake, but apparently they're remaking the PSP version. I thought that was cool because it's a JRPG and I like Star Ocean. So there you go. I really need to replay that game too. So I might actually pick up the PSP version, but if they're remaking it on PS4 and Switch, I hope it comes to PC. Please bring it to PC. I really want all the Square Enix games on PC. Please. And then Sonic the Hedgehog movie is delayed so they can make Sonic look less weird. So basically the Sonic movie came out, or the Sonic trailer movie came out more specifically, and Sonic looked abysmal, looked awful. Like, there's no way to actually look around that. It just looked terrible. And everyone's like, hey, you guys should, like, not do this, guys. Come on. And they're like, yeah, you're right. All right, cool. So basically they said right away, they were like, all right, cool. We're going to, like, redo Sonic. We're going to make it look good. And people were like, how are you going to do that before release? Some people were speculating that, like, oh, this is just an old trailer that they rendered a long time ago. They already have a fixed Sonic. That ain't the case. Apparently, they just have to delay the movie, which I don't know who's looking forward to this movie, quite frankly. I know some people are looking forward to it being bad. I don't think that fixing Sonic's look is going to fix everything, but it'll make it bearable at least. So that'll be a thing, I guess. I'm a huge Sonic fan, but I'm also not looking forward to this movie. Sonic movies have a reputation for not being good, and this is a live action one, and it looks like it was made for not me. So that's that. And the last bit of news that we have on this list is Team Sonic Racing is the first Sonic game to top the UK charts since Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. So although Sonic Racing isn't doing too well in reviews, Team Sonic Racing, I actually enjoyed a lot. It's getting very mixed reviews, but then again, which Sonic game hasn't gotten mixed reviews since 2006? I mean, Sonic 06 basically made the trend of let's hate on Sonic for literally everything, even if it's not justified, and people kind of have a bias against it. Not going to hold that against people, but some people also just don't like Sonic games. But after Sonic 06 being notoriously bad, a lot more people started paying attention to Sonic, which is kind of ironic because those were the people that enjoyed Sonic games. So basically, Sonic reviews are always mixed, no matter what the game is. So take that as you will. But basically, Team Sonic Racing is apparently actually selling quite well in physical sales, and it's actually selling really well in the UK and actually topped the charts. Now, most of this comes down to just not a lot of other games being strong releases this month, so there's that. But it is pretty interesting to look at, and I like the game, so I thought I may as well mention it. Honestly, I was going to skip it for this video, but I was looking at our timestamp, and basically I didn't think there was enough articles, so there you go. I added one at the end. Anyways, that is our news for the week. Basically, I enjoy it, so let's go ahead and go into some personal stuff. I have been working on some stuff for my rhythm game, and I found some issues with it, so I'm going to have a little bit of a delay for that one. So that sucks. So basically I had an input system and everything kind of designed, but I actually designed it almost backwards, and so I'm basically having to rewrite the entire backend and do a lot of rewriting. I'm also changing the art style, and I'm working on a new shader for the engine because I was working with a cell shader, but the cell shader I cannot get working on mobile because I wrote my own cell shading engine for Unreal Engine 4, and it just isn't working on mobile at all, and I found out why, and I can't fix it. And instead of actually writing a whole new flat shader, I'm going to basically be trying to make a toon shader with outlines and try to make that work in more of an anime setting and try to make it so it's kind of weird and interesting. I'm working on it. It's going to take a while. And as for the rhythm game mechanically, basically I have to rewrite the entire backend to work the reverse way, because basically I had the visuals programmed to set up the inputs so that basically the inputs were based on the visuals rather than the other way around, to where it should be the inputs base what's visually on the screen. And this ran into a bunch of little bugs and errors that I knew was going to cause me problems in the future. And so basically I had the right idea because it's all based on an event system. I'll make a blog post about it on my website at michaelpstanich.com, link in the description, eventually talking about my whole process for all this. But essentially I figured out the right idea of making an events-based system. This also means that custom charts are going to have access to pretty much any event within the game itself as long as I make an interpreter for it. So basically custom charts are going to be a thing for the game, which is 100% confirmed and already works. The problem is I have to rewrite the backend to actually make it so the inputs base the visuals rather than the visuals base the inputs, because otherwise you run into a bunch of technical issues and I can't do a lot of the features that I wanted to. Again, I'll go into more detail on a blog post in the coming future in the few days or whatever. Another news, I'm not doing weekly blog posts. That's just not going to work. It took me a lot longer to write each blog post than I thought it was going to, and I just don't have the time for that. So I'm going to do bi-weekly, or whenever I have a big update for something, or whenever I have a topic that I specifically want to talk about. So they'll just be sporadic, quite frankly. So if you ever want something to read, check out my website. I might have a new blog post. I might not. I'll announce in these videos when I do. I am working on a blog post for this next week, which is talking about the rhythm game. So that might come out in the next few days. And then videos, I am working on a retrospective video on one of them. I decided to delay because a certain YouTuber that influenced it has gotten in a lot of trouble recently, and the video's done, but I'm kinda just gonna not release it because I feel icky with that game specifically right now, and I'm not gonna mention who it was or what was happening, but I just don't want to be associated with that, and I feel like the associations are a little bit too strong right now because people are still talking about it, and I thought the controversy would die within a few days, and it didn't. So basically I'm working on for Final Fantasy Tactics. I'm going to be talking about how it emulates and how you can actually play it and different mods and things and how you can actually change the experience. So it's going to be different than normal retrospective, but it's fairly interesting. So I'm pretty much halfway done. I'm playing through the game again on my own, just playing through it, and I might start a stream just to do like a challenge stream to actually kind of go into this. So that video won't come out for a while, but it's an interesting venture nonetheless. So yeah, that's why I didn't have a release this week though, is because I decided not to release another video. So it might release in the future. We'll see how that happens. I might want to redo some of the sections based on what I just talked about. Anyways, that's been me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this one. And of course, you can check out our gaming Discord called the Broken Chat Box, link in the description. We have a news and such section. That is where all of these articles came from. And if you want to end up posting news articles to be mentioned in these videos, you can also post them in there, or just post them in there so that people can see what the news are going on. And especially if you end up seeing something interesting and you want to hear me talk about it, you can also post it in there, or you can leave that stuff in the comments below. And also make me know what you think about in this video. That was the wrong way to word that, but there you go. I'm kind of all over the place today. I've got a little bit too much energy while also being extremely tired from working on things. So I'm like, all over the place. And of course, if you like my styles of content, you can check out my website at michaelpstanich.com, link in the description. I have a new system for hosting. It should be at michaelpstanich.com now, not GitHub. So it's still technically hosted on GitHub, but it's like a whole different route. Some people are getting it to work, some people aren't. So I would like to know if it is working. So if you end up going to it, do check me out on Discord and let me know whether it's working for you or not, because that would actually help me out a ton. Anyways, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh, I forgot to talk about Dauntless. Dauntless is boring. I'm sure I'll have footage in the background. You'll see that it's boring.